Hi, everybody. My name is Emily.
My name is Winnie.
My name's Aditi.
I'm Kenzie.
And I'm Elena.
And this is our Stage Gate 1 presentation, and we are Xtra. So, to start us off, I want to talk about our consumer. These are people who wear a medical device every single day. They're wearing it hiking, at school, at work, at the grocery store. There's no off switch for them, and because of that, how the device looks and feels in public is not a minor concern. It's a constant and daily one. And so the category that we're working in itself sits at the intersection of external medical devices and personal expression. These medical devices could be things like oxygen systems, ostomy bags, mobility aids, cannula tubes, just devices that people depend on for their health. And what makes this category distinct is that the focus is not on medical function because that's already being solved by the device itself. What we're talking about is the part that's visible and deals with self-expression. So moving into market size and trends, let's talk about the size of this opportunity. The wearable medical devices segment is projected to hit $163 billion by 2030, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 25.5%. That's one of the fastest growing segments in all of healthcare. But the number that we really want to highlight is this one. 194 million Americans reported at least one chronic condition in 2023, and prevalence among young adults rose 7% over the last decade alone. Chronic illness is not just an elderly population issue anymore. The people who need those devices are getting younger, and that shift is why this market exists right now.
Building off the prevalence of chronic illness, many individuals rely on medical devices in their daily lives. When we look at the search trend, we see a steady interest, but that doesn't fully capture the space. Many results are broad or ambiguous, often referring to things like scrubs rather than the fashion for people who actually use medical devices. However, this is not a weakness. The lack of clarity highlights is an opportunity to define a new category. To understand who this matters for, we looked at a specific user, Parker. Parker is a 22-year-old entering the workplace who values style and self-expression, but relies on a medical device that is not designed with that in mind. She is often forced to hide it or compromise her outfits. That was until she found Xtra. Now she can integrate style and fashion with confidence. And while Parker is one individual, she represents a broader segment within the market. Across this market, there are several distinct segments, from older adults and function-focused users to caregivers who influence purchasing decision. There's also a younger, style-driven group, people like Parker, who care about identity and self-expression just as much as functionality. To estimate these segments, we started with the CDC and US Census data on disability prevalence, then narrowed down by age range and behavior to define our populations. And while the segment is smaller, around 2 to 2.5 million in the US, they are highly aligned with what we're building. They're underserved and more likely to engage with design-forward products and more open to new brands. So we're intentionally focusing on these groups as our primary target.
We're going to be starting the Extra product launch in Colorado because this is our local market that we'll have easy access to. And additionally, starting a business that initially focuses on a local market helps build trust in relationships with our customers, which is especially going to be important when we're dealing with medical devices because they can be a sensitive topic. After picking up popularity in a local market, we want to expand for cities known for their fashion, such as New York and LA. Additionally, these cities have a much larger population, which means it's a larger potential customer base.
As we dive into the market, it's important to know our top competitors. The main types of companies that we are facing up against are standard medical companies like Abbott Labs and Medtronics, smaller businesses like Jam the Label and Death Metal, as well as individual sellers like Etsy or Shopify. So, this leads us to our perceptual map. Here we compare our main competitors using insights from the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. So, large medical companies like Medtronic are going to be in the upper right corner because they focus on product reliability and safety. They often have really high pricing that's covered by insurance, and they're distributed through hospitals and promoted through physicians. Now, these companies do have a diverse selection of medical devices, but they're very functional and lack style and expression. Smaller businesses on this map are kind of all over the place in terms of functionality. Like some of them are more functional, some of them are just aesthetic, but they all have one thing in common, which is a lack of diverse selection. Businesses like Death Metal, they prioritize aesthetic and customizable products with direct-to-consumer distribution, and they often promote online or on social media, but they still lack variety amongst medical devices. Finally, individual sellers like Etsy are in the upper left corner because they offer highly creative products with varied prices, and these are also promoted online, but these businesses are not scalable. Our perceptual map shows a very clear gap. No brand currently offers stylish, high quality accessories for a wide range of devices. And that's where we extra step in.
So, while Parker represents our target user, we wanted to see if these challenges showed up across real people. So, we conducted empathy interviews with users of oxygen devices, hearing aids, mobility aids, and a knee brace. We found three consistent patterns. First is identity versus visibility. These devices are very noticeable and often clash with how people want to express themselves. One person hid her hearing aids under her hair because she felt they made her look older. Another said her knee brace ruined her outfits, and a cane user mentioned not feeling as hot when going out. Early designs were described as gray and hospital looking. When people could personalize devices like adding stickers to a cane or using colorful hearing aids, they became a way to express personality. Some users wanted trendy colors or fabrics to match their outfits. The need is to feel confident and stylish, while the friction is that most devices look purely clinical and aren't customizable. The second insight is function versus experience. Even when devices work, people sometimes avoid them because they feel uncomfortable or socially clunky. One participant said managing oxygen equipment felt stressful and messy. Users wanted lightweight fabrics for braces, sleeker hearing aids that could double as jewelry, or oxygen tubing that clips discreetly onto bags and belts. The need is for devices people want to wear, comfortable, easy, and visually appealing, while the friction is that current designs are often frustrating and unfashionable. The third insight is real life versus device design. People have active, social lives, but their devices don't always fit. They interfered with clothing, outdoor activities, and everyday tasks. One oxygen user even had to design her own backpack because nothing matched her lifestyle or look. The need is for devices that fit daily life and personal style, while the friction is that current designs are bulky and clinical. These devices solve the medical problem, but they don't fully support the person using them or their style. There's a real opportunity to make devices functional and fashionable so people can feel confident and expressive just like any other accessory.
These insights gave us a look into three key trends that are converging right now to make this the right moment for a product like ours. First, there's rising chronic illness in young adults. 6 in 10 young adults already report at least one chronic condition. That's our target market, and as stated before, it's growing. Second, there's a gender gap in device adoption. Research out of UCL found that women are actually less likely to use mobility aids than men despite having a greater need. And one of the key reasons cited is that the design of these devices has historically been built around a male user. And that's a significant underserved group and one that our research suggests cares a lot about aesthetics and self-expression. Third, there's a cultural movement happening right now around disability as an identity rather than a deficit. People want to express who they are through everything they wear, including their medical equipment. Our product lives directly inside that shift, and these three trends aren't independent. They reinforce each other, and together they point to a consumer who is ready to stop being shy and instead be extra.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.